All right, here we go with the Monday, January 2nd edition of the Carolina weather video. A whole lot to talk about, a lot of interest in the late week and the weekend. That's the period I've been watching for quite some time, and a lot of interesting possibilities there. I'll get into all the details of that coming up in just a couple of moments. Let's begin with a look at things this morning, though. I'm cutting the video much later than normal. This is during the 8 o'clock hour, and that's a look at the Greensboro tower camera this morning where the rain continues to fall. Down around the Charlotte area, it has continued to fall as well. The temperature there in the Queen City at 49. That's about where we have been for the past 24 hours across a lot of the Piedmont. This cold air damming scenario in place, and we continue to have this wet weather scenario unfolding for us. There's the radars we've gone through the past couple of hours during the 6 and 7 o'clock hours early this morning. Excuse me, and there's a look across the Carolinas as a whole. Some thunderstorms rumbling east of Columbia. But notice here, as you get down here toward Georgia and the upstate, the westernmost upstate, this will lull in the activity. That's what's heading into the Piedmont zones of North Carolina this afternoon. So a lot of lingering light rain and drizzle before this next big batch of rain gets here later on. An ongoing severe thunderstorm warning, say southwest of Tuscaloosa in Alabama, and then just a line of severe storms in eastern Texas. At one point in time, you had Jackson, Mississippi, Dallas, and Houston, Texas, all under severe thunderstorm warnings early this morning, with this next storm system marching eastward. So again, this morning, this batch of rain will taper off with time. Here comes the next system rolling our way. And in the warm sector down there, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, pretty significant threat of severe weather today. And then that system gets up into the Carolinas tonight. Now, your severe weather threat, there's the day one convective outlook. That is an enhanced risk of severe weather. Good chunk of Louisiana, Mississippi, southwestern Alabama, places like Mobile and Meridian, Jackson, New Orleans, all in that enhanced risk of severe weather, wind damage, the primary severe weather threat there. And watch the high resolution modeling here. Once that pops in, you'll see those big thunderstorms developing off to the southwest and rolling northeastward. And again, that batch of precipitation gets into the Carolinas tonight, into tomorrow morning. So let's talk rain totals. Now this is rain totals, additional rains from roughly 6 o'clock this morning. There's the first wave, there's the second wave. So all totaled up, a lot of folks could pick up 2+ inches of rain. Very healthy rain event. Temperatures barely moving today out in the wedge, outside of the wedge, getting much warmer. Places like Columbia and Charleston, Wilmington, much warmer today. Atlanta too. And then temperatures not moving much tonight ahead of that incoming cold front. Now tomorrow, we begin the day with rain, some thunderstorms a possibility, especially in South Carolina and eastern North Carolina. And then that system departs, probably pretty quiet tomorrow afternoon. Highs milder tomorrow in those areas that were in the wedge today. And then we squeeze in a pretty quiet, a mild day Wednesday. Not much happening Wednesday, just ahead of this big press of Arctic air. We're talking highs, pretty mild Wednesday, but then look by Thursday, that colder air begins to take hold around the region. Now, late this week, and let me just kind of get into some of the more detailed modeling here. It all depends on what happens aloft, okay? And it all is around the west coast where we have to watch. This is the European model, 0Z run today. This is valid this afternoon. And there's that piece of energy that's off the Pacific Northwest coast. Now we go out to 36 hours. This is Tuesday morning. Notice a piece of energy trying to get left behind on the European. But what happens is as that next big trough dives in, here it is right here diving into Montana, it actually collects that piece of energy and it all comes out in one big trough Friday night into the eastern part of the country. That's a possibility. Certainly that's a possibility. However, on the GFS model, let's see if I stuck this in here. Here's the 0Z run of the GFS. There's that piece of energy separated from the trough, diving into the northern tier of the country. And so you end up with a second separate system getting here Saturday. That's the 0Z run of the GFS. The 6Z was similar to some extent, at least with that piece of energy getting left behind and coming through as a second system. All right, so the net result of this, here's the European run. And again, the trend has been on the European for this to get a little bit stronger, and even though it's coming as one big trough, the tail end of the trough getting a little bit more well-defined, and so you actually do get some snow thrown back into parts of the western Carolinas on the latest European. That's Friday evening, and then overnight Friday night into Saturday morning, you do get a few inches of snow in parts of the Carolinas. Now, let me show you the 6Z run of the GFS, and if you want to draw up an ideal snowstorm track for parts of the Carolinas, this is it. And this is a nasty ice storm, by the way, on the GFS, the latest run for parts of Georgia and South Carolina. But here we go. This is Saturday morning. Low pressure near the mouth of the Mississippi River. 6 hours later, that low moving near the Big Bend region of Florida. This is, of course, snow, sleet, freezing rain, and then rain. We go out 6 hours later, Saturday evening. Snow over much of North Carolina and the western half of South Carolina, and then that system gradually pulls out from there. And so you take that model literally. This is the footprint of snow, and boy, it's a lot of it. Some of this on the southern fringe would be ice. There's your precipitation type accumulation. Again, this is ice there through parts of South Carolina and Georgia. And again, you take that with a mound of salt. This was the 0Z run of the GFS. Snow totals lighter, and it was a snow to ice rain, snow to ice to rain, actually back to snow in parts of the cold air damming regions of North Carolina. And so, I show you all this just to, and before I wrap it up here, let me give you the Canadian model. All right, so this is Thursday night, a little weak system. And I do need to mention that there is a potential for a weak system around Thursday night that could put down a little bit of light snow. I'm not overly impressed with that aspect of the system, of the potential late this week at this point, but certainly a lot of complicated scenarios to unfold here. Now, this is the Canadian for Friday night. I'm sorry, Friday night, and then there's Saturday morning, and then there's Saturday early afternoon as that system departs. So what will happen? Let me go back to this 500 millibar chart. All right, and again, this is back from the 0Z run of the GFS. Now, a lot of times, if you get somewhat of an agreement between the Canadian and the European model, that's the way to go. But I made a mental note with the storm system that moved through 1 to 2 months ago. I can't remember the exact date, but there was a scenario where the GFS model was leaving a piece of energy back here in the desert southwest, and the European model was bringing it out in one big trough, and it wound up that GFS scenario was correct, and the GFS was sniffing it out. So I just made a mental note thinking that might be important in the winter, and maybe it is important here. Maybe it's not. Maybe the European is right. But I do think that GFS idea has some credence with this piece of energy getting left behind and coming out as a second system. So what I've done with my forecast package on air for this morning is I've gone with the idea of, again, maybe a little weak system moving through, bringing a little bit of light snow, say Thursday night or Friday morning. But then I've gone with the idea of Friday night and Saturday, that system moving through, bringing some snow. And the further south you go in the Carolinas, the more it would be a wintry mix. But again, that is just one of many possible solutions. But I'm leaning in that direction, and I do think there's a possibility, at least, that GFS model solution is correct. If you're wondering what the European puts out, this is its snow output. And again, the GFS just kind of goes nuts with the 6Z run that just moved through, that just came out. So, this is probably an extreme and unlikely scenario in terms of these amounts, but the bottom line is there are chances later this week for some winter weather across parts of the southeast, and we'll keep evaluating it. Either solution there, the European or the GFS, could be correct. But I just, at this point, where normally in the past you would kind of discount the GFS in this scenario, I'm not going to discount it right now. I'm going to leave it in as a possibility. All right, that is it for the latest edition of the video. Everybody have a great day. Happy New Year, everybody, and God bless.